Some audio there. Today is the 18th of November, 2014, and all commissioners are present. We have public comments. Doesn't look like anybody showed up for this one, but let's see, well, a couple of folks. Mr. Keith Johnson, would you like to say a few words to the commission? Is he on?
Can you speak? I can't.
Yeah, Keith Johnson with the fishing vessel Golden North and Gallery 513. It's not really a joke. But I saw on my email that you guys were going to sponsor the Wild Seafood Exchange, or said you were proud to sponsor it. And I just want to say I was one of the first people on board to do wild seafood here and in Bellingham, in the port of Bellingham. And I have an otter trawl boat, which is sitting idle because of some rockfish that are on the Endangered Species Act, which they should not be on the Endangered Species Act, especially the Boccaccio rockfish, because it does not live in this area. And the canary. The yellow eye is the only one that I know of. And as I said in my last letter, or a couple of letters, I catch so few of rockfish that sometimes I went for years in a row and I didn't even catch one for years in a row. And so anyway, Commissioner Robbins wanted to me to resubmit some of my letters. So what I did was I wrote a new letter. And I have with it some letters of support that were written to me. One is from someone that you know, Jim Kyle. And one's from an artist friend of mine, Graham Shada. And I've got some other, maybe a little bit of information overload included with the package. But it's got my letter on top, and I only did one package. It's got my brochure from when I was selling fish off my boat. And again, I want to say the flounder and sole are an abundant species out here, and the otter trawl fishery is a historic fishery, and it was utilized during World War II. All the boats geared up for it, and they went out and fished dogfish, and they just kept the livers, and they used the livers to make vitamin A for the soldiers and the pilots during World War II. So that fishery was called up, and that's one of the things that makes my federally documented fishing vessel important. And so all I want to do is just submit this package of letters right now. If you have any questions for me.
You said what kind of fishing you did?
Right, otter trawl. I fish over the sand and the mud. I don't fish over rocks. And yeah, you can catch the odd one from time to time, but the Strait of Georgia is not known for its rockfish out over the mud flats like it is off the Cape. The Cape has rockfish, but they're different. But the ones out here, it's just the odd one that you get from time to time. And the other thing is we've already had the South Sound closed to us by the state legislature in 1989. So we haven't even had access to the whole South Sound or the whole eastern Juan de Fuca Strait since 1989. And it's been since then that they're actually saying these rockfish are endangered. And not only that, with no otter trawling in that area, they're saying Chinook salmon are endangered and orcas. So.
I agree with your remarks. I don't ever remember asking for the letters, but I'll be happy to accept them and read them. When did I ask for those letters?
Back in May. In May. And I mentioned that I had submitted the letters, and nobody up there remembered getting them. One of the letters that I have included with my package is a letter to me, and it went to Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife Director Phil Anderson, and it's a letter that endorses the otter trawl fishery from the National Marine Fisheries Service, written to me from my correspondence with them. And so that's in here too. So that's all I have to say. It just depends on the time of the year and the area that you're in. But there's all manner of things that you can do to address each issue. For instance, if you're not going to fish in an area that's crabby if you're not catching any fish. And if it's got crab in it, you make shorter tows. There's all kinds of things you can do. We picked the cod end over the side of the boat, so the boom swings over, you pick it up, you just gently spill it out, you lift the scupper plate up, and you start sliding the extra catch out the scupper plate. And the crabs are just fine. You know, I dare anybody to go out there and give them the pinch test to see if they're dead or not. But, and the other thing is, if you want to talk about crab, if you want to go back into the 1920s and the 1930s, and I have all kinds of statistics from back in those days, there was not the crab out there then that there is now. The crab were there because of the otter trawl fishery. They're there because of all the harvesting of dogfish and skates that prey on them. That's why they're there. And you're trying to, and so I have a right to be out there, and I have a right. It's so frustrating to have a boat that you've had for 35 years, and now it's tied up. It's essentially chained to the dock by the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and all I can do is go down there and stare out across the bay. Nice. That's real nice. So, you know, my level of frustration is immense. It's just, I don't even know what to say. But all I can tell you is you should come by Gallery 513 and buy some art from me. Some of my art photography. But you could use some on your walls in here.
Thanks, Keith. Do you have copies for all of us? Okay.
No, I just,
We'll just get copies made.
shareable because there's about 25 pages in there.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
There's only one other member of the public. Young lady, would you like to say anything while you're here? That's it? All right, then that will close our public comment time. And Diane, if you'd read our motion on the consent agenda, please.
First of all, I'd just like to mention that we had some comments made via email to you from Matt Pascas regarding the beaver habitat project out at the airport. So I'll pass those to you and enter them into the record.
Thank you. Do you want to know?
Good to go? A motion to approve consent agenda items A through D.
Nothing.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, Diane. And so we are going to recess our regularly scheduled meeting here. We're going to open a public meeting, hearing on our comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. I do believe we have a little information about that, Greg.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We're here today to conduct a public hearing to solicit comment from the general public, to see if there's any objection to any of the capital improvement projects identified in our comprehensive or our strategic budget for inclusion into our comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. As you know, when we updated comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements, we hold various stakeholder meetings, tenant meetings, and a public hearing forecasting any change in direction or new projects. Our comp schemes are updated over time, and this is an opportunity to coincide our comprehensive scheme with our strategic budget. So with that, I would open it up for public comment to see if there was anybody that.
It looks like Mr. Greg Brown.
I just signed up that I was here.
Oh, okay. So of the two people who are here, not staff, anybody want to say anything about our scheme of harbor improvements plan for next year? Nothing? All right, then we will close our public hearing on that. Thank you, Craig. And we're going to reopen our regularly scheduled meeting, and we've got an action item regarding our strategic budgets. Diane?
The action item is to do with the comp scheme.
Yes.
Yeah. So, motion to approve Resolution 1335 incorporating the capital projects contained in the 2015 strategic budget into the Port of Bellingham's various comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements plans in Whatcom County, Washington as follows. The Blaine Wharf District Master Plan, the Sumas International Cargo Terminal Comprehensive Scheme of Harbor Improvements, the Airport Master Plan, the Comprehensive Scheme of Harbor Improvements for Squalicum Harbor, the Bellingham Waterfront District Plan, and the Fairhaven Comprehensive Scheme of Harbor Improvements.
Diane, do we have a presentation on this? Nothing? Okay, any discussion? Jim? Anything from esteemed Mr. Dan Robbins? All right, so in that case, all in favor? Aye. And thank you for that, Diane. We're now going to recess our public meeting again and open a public hearing on our 2015 strategic budgets.
So Commissioners, today is the final public hearing for the 2015 budget. And as a reminder to the public, this is a culmination of several meetings. We had 2 planning sessions with Commission in June and July, 3 in October, and this is our second one in November. So today we're also going to be asking for your approval of the final budget as well as the tax levy. So first, I just wanted to point out just a few changes that we made to the final version from the draft. Oops. A little technical difficulty. Let's see. There it is. So at the airport, there was one capital budget change. We moved the snow removal equipment facility out to 2016 and moved up the construction of the commercial ramp remain overnight spots to 2015. So we flopped those two. And both projects are 90% funded by the FAA. And then on the operating side, we increased our CAM charges by $13,000 and decreased some expenses. Supplies, $20,000 reduction, and meeting expenses, almost $2,000 there. At the marinas, we had no capital changes, but we took a hard look at the expenses and decreased our supplies budget by $3,000 for the final version. Marine terminals, we had no changes from the draft, as well as real estate, no changes from the draft. Overhead stayed the same. And tax revenues, at the budget meeting prior, I mentioned that the rate for 2014 was 0.2861, I believe, and that was our budgeted number. The actual number is 0.2882, and that's what we're expecting for 2015 as well. So no change on the public side, either with the environmental divisions or the other economic development, community connections, or infrastructure divisions. So with those few changes, the cash flows look a little bit different. Looking to start the year at almost 31 million, bring in almost 77 million, spend over 86, and end 2015 with $21.5 million. Take off the reserve, and we expect to end next year with just over $11.3 million. That's a change from the $12 million I reported a couple weeks ago. So with that, I invite you to open up to public comment.
And we will. I believe we can do that, and nobody wants to comment. Of course, because it's budget season. Who wants to comment on budgets, right? All right, then. So I guess we can, I think we have to take a vote on this. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Not a vote on this one? All right, well, then we're going to close our public hearing on our budget discussion. Thank you, Tamara. And now open our regular session again. hammer. I love this time of year. Diane?
A motion to adopt Resolution Number 1337, approving the 2015 strategic budget, and Resolution Number 1338, authorizing the regular property tax levy and declaring a substantial need to maintain the maximum levy capacity.
And now we can do some voting. You guys have any questions?
I just had a question. Back when we were showing this.
Marinas or marine terminals? I sure can. Okay, great.
Decimal, I thought.
Tamara, so moving the remain overnights from 16 to 15 doesn't save us any money. Why would we do it?
So that was my request. One of the items that were in there was the snow removal equipment shed, and the shed doesn't have the opportunity to produce any revenues associated with it. The equipment's fairly dry right now. I understand some of it may stick out or extend from the shed it's in, but the remain overnight positions has the opportunity of developing some revenue associated with it. So I chose to throw that in there and move the snow removal out. So I think the round positions were in 2016, and we just basically flipped those, so they're now in 2015. The snow removal's 2016.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good with that? Good. All right, all in favor then? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Tamara, and thank you, Diane, for that. And now we have a presentation on our airport. Mr. Bolton.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We wanted to give you an update of the work going on at the airport currently, sort of in-house, or at least in my folders. I call it Phase 3 of the airport commercial terminal expansion. It's really just finishing up the items from Phase 2. We elected to, there was just enough of them, there were just enough little pickup items and kind of cleanup items that we elected to partition them off and go ahead and put them into their own bid package just to get a competitive bid pricing as opposed to change order pricing. So just to review this, we're very happy. The staff is very proud to just review this project with you. We completed Phase 1 in July of 2011. Phase 2 we completed earlier this year in February. And of the $38.6 million budget, we look to be about strongly $2 million under budget, or about 5% under budget. And that is reflective in our 2015 budget. So that's a good story. It's a good story of prudence and management and building what we need and not anything more. But we do have these ongoing projects, and these are already accounted for. When I say that we're $2 million under budget, it is projecting what these will come in at. And the ongoing work there, the final project items, the advertising, and the U.S. Customs TI. The final project items, I'll kind of go in order of their cost. And this first one on the left there is the road reconstruction and restriping. You know, we had something in our bid for overlaying that road at the end of the project, and I think that really we underestimated what was going to happen to that road when we put $25 million of construction over top of it. And it was just very, very beat up. I don't know if you guys remember that, but we ended up reconstructing it and then restriping it for the need. So it's going to last well beyond my career, I'm sure. Also, on the apron, maybe 2 months ago, we came to the commission, and the airlines are getting different aircraft in that requires us to reconfigure our ramp such that we can have RONs, such that we can host different aircraft. What I show with that arrow there, I think I'm able to point, is, for instance, there's a nose gear of a Q400 or some aircraft, or an A319. Anyways, that's what you see along here, just the accommodation all the way from Space 1 to Space 8 of different aircraft being able to be accommodated on our apron. Another item we're doing there are interior and exterior signage, just kind of a minor item, but just a cleanup item. What happens is you build this whole terminal, you put in all this great signage, and then you start to live in it for a little bit, and you sort of recognize what you're missing and what isn't quite working for the traveling public. And so this little project sort of cleans up a few of those items. Coming actually later in this week will be in that left photo, you'll see there's below the P, right here, there's an electronic reader that'll be controlled from the parking booth, and that tells customers, the passengers, what parking lots are open and full and where they can go to park. It's a convenience item. These are some other little items we're doing around the airport, completing a sidewalk in the upper left, repairing a wall damage, refinishing our trusses, providing a guardrail there to protect the building from the ground service equipment. This wastewater dump facility in the lower left is kind of interesting. Is you can build things according to code, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're meeting food service code. And so when midway through the project, when we started flying to Hawaii, suddenly those aircraft have to be rated for food service code, which requires us to do something different with the plumbing there, which we're now correcting. Ladder correction there, put baby change stations in all of our restrooms out there, very convenient. Little slab collection in the lower correction in the lower right, and that's actually being paid for by our consultant. It was just a pure engineering error that they agreed that was theirs to pay for, and they're doing that. This shown in the red box right here. This is outside. This is position 2, position 3. We're going to put one of these shelters, much larger than what is shown, but that type of a structure out there, suitable for holding about 30 people, so they can wait for their luggage a la carte and have some shelter from the weather. Second item, that first item was just the pickup items completing phase 2. This second item is the artwork and advertising program. And looking at the whole terminal where these arrows point are just some of the places that we have these monitors. They're 55-inch monitors. They're all fiber connected. They are all connected into a satellite up on the roof. And through those, we show quite a few things. We show what's called Flight Information Display System, which you see in the lower right there. We show television. We show TSA announcements. We will be showing Chamber of Commerce type propaganda, as well as we'll be showing artwork and advertising. And the advertising is actually a revenue creator. It can be very profitable for us. And again, we have 92 of these monitors around that 105,000 foot terminal. So it's a good source of revenue that we'll be looking to kick online this upcoming year. And then the third thing is our U.S. Customs and Border Patrol tenant improvements. We're in the red box down at the very south end of the building here. There's a 3,000 foot rock room, we call it, which is in the condition you see it there. And we'll be building an international gateway, if you will, that U.S. Customs can operate in. It's the last portion of the building to be built, and just to give you the experience of the international traveler. Again, there's kind of 3 ranges of international travel. There's small private aircraft, maybe it's a few people on an aircraft, and then there's up to about 19 or so, which might be a suitable hop from Victoria or something like that. And then there's, of course, a full-scale commercial airliner. We're set up for that middle range, and we're moving that function into the main terminal. And so what you see here is again, go back here a minute. We're at this part of the terminal, so an international aircraft would park perhaps in the customs inspection box, and the passengers would make their way to this facility where they would come into this waiting room, and then they would go through inspection, and then the approved passengers can either go back outside and back to their aircraft, where maybe they're going further in the United States, or they can exit into our terminal if they're hooking or connecting to a commercial flight. And then, of course, there's the not suitable or not approved passengers, that there's further questions. And those, there are rooms back in here designed to question and contain such people. So those are the three main things we're doing out at the airport terminal, finishing up phase 2, completing the advertising with our monitors, and doing this customs tenant improvement. The commissioners have any questions this afternoon? Well, this kind of is phase 3. Yes, sir.
Well, congratulations, still coming in under budget. That's really hard to do on a project this big, and
Thank you.
nice job.
Thank you.
So, Adam, the advertising, thanks for throwing that in, the advertising part of it. We had some long discussions about that in the past year. Obviously, not all 92 monitors are going to be able to do that. One of my concerns that I hope we have addressed in our advertising plan is the local county businesses and county interests getting screen time. Do we have a volume allowance or a time allowance or anything set for that yet?
Yeah, this advertising program is going to be real slick. As Adam mentioned, we have, 95 screens there. We have the capability of putting anything on any of those screens at any time. And so right now we are developing a program and a policy to address the different advertising needs. And we're going to present that to the commission hopefully by the end of this year, including rate structure, inventory, and some possible ideas.
All right. So I just want to reiterate on that point, especially because Dan's new, that we're seeing a huge number of people walk through one very confined space. So getting their eyes on Whatcom County is that you can't top this opportunity for getting them to stop for a minute somewhere else besides the Costco. All right. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Anything further? No? All right. Thank you for that, Adam.
Thank you.
That ends our regular program. Do we have any new business from any of you guys? I got a few things I want to talk about. Nothing? All right. So in October, I thought our website update was kind of clunky, but some other people have approached me and suggested the same thing. And I don't know exactly what is wrong with it, but for example, I struggled to find the commission, our agenda on the new website, or the website update. I don't know why it's buried anymore. A month or so, 2 months ago, I was wondering about our harbor line adjustments. Have you signed anybody, Rob, have you signed anybody to take a look at that yet?
We've had discussions, Sylvia and myself have had discussions on it, but we haven't reached any conclusions, no.
Okay.
And we think it's going to be a very tall order to get those harbor lines adjusted, and Sylvia's she's not here today, unfortunately, but she's of the belief that it's not going to help the community boating center's problem anyway. So I'm not sure we should go to that much expense if it's not going to get the result we desire.
Sure, I don't disagree about that for the community boating center. I do have a contact that could be very useful for us that I met at the Northwest Marine Trade Association meeting in Bremerton, and it's a DNR person that is assigned to deal with those questions, so it could be a good contact. I'll make sure I get that to Sylvia. Right.
Okay, you can send it to me too, that'd be great, thank you.
And when are you going to Ireland?
I've booked my plane for Sunday, November 30th. I think I return on Saturday, is that the 6th or the 7th? Saturday or Sunday that weekend.
All right, I probably want to have one more conversation with you before you go. So that's next week. It'll be Sunday, 9 days from now, 10 days from now?
Yeah.
15 days,
About
14
2
days.
weeks.
Yeah, 14 days from now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just catch up with you on our regular weekly then. Okay, cool.
I've also had someone say it was hard to navigate and find today's agenda.
Okay, well, we can, that's an easy fix. We can put the most current agenda right on the front of the website, and it's probably the same thing with the minutes, but I'll work with our team to get that done.
Thank you.
So this next item is just a little housekeeping for commissioners. So if staff want to go, it's going to be pretty boring. I want to have a conversation about our committees, specifically in regards to the buyout committee. I was at the meeting last week, but so if you guys want to bail, that's fine. I don't think it'll be that interesting to you guys, but the point the points I want to make is this regarding our committees. I think we have a little bit of an identity crisis. I think that watching what happened at the BIAC last week showed me that they're clearly not ready for prime time for various reasons. So I'd like to address something a little bit off topic for just a second. And I believe that one of our responsibilities here is to the body overall, and I believe that transcends us as individuals. And I also believe that a responsibility to this body has to survive our time on the commission, because at some point we will go. So, committees such as our BIAC or the MAC are committees of the commission. I don't think they're staff committees, and they're not the directors' committees. I believe that the staff that we've assigned to a committee should receive reports or requests from that committee and transfer those unedited to us on the commission for discussion. And in the past year, I brought this up with Rob earlier this week. In the past year, I haven't seen a single report or meeting minutes from any of our committees other than our discussion about moorage. So I'm asking him to address that and make sure that we do get meeting minutes from all our committees. At the last BIAC, Dan, this is something for you, and I noticed that you'd spoken up repeatedly at that meeting, and you were adding your 2 cents to the committee discussion. I personally found that very disrespectful to the commission overall and irresponsible toward our process. I'm just going to chalk that up to a newbie mistake, because we don't have a class that tells us all the things that we need to do when we're here. But to the broader point, by speaking individually during a committee meeting, individual commissioners, we're only presenting our one individual voice, which undermines the will, the effort, and the voice of the other 2 who are not at that committee meeting. With respect, I will ask right now that at no time will a commissioner attend a meeting of our committees and do anything other than observe. Barring agreement to this request today, I will present a resolution at an upcoming commission meeting to clearly lay out commission governance regarding how our committees operate and what we do when we are at them. And
So what, let me just interject.
Sure.
Turn your mic on, Jim, please. Thank you. Whoop, there you go.
Green's on now. That's how quick it took me to forget what I was going to ask you.
Speaking at the meetings.
well,
Speaking at the MAC meeting.
I'll tell you my approach to this has been, and I was counsel on this when I first got elected back in 2010, and I was asked or counseled along these lines. When an individual commissioner goes to a committee meeting and speaks, they're only presenting their own opinion, but to the committee members, they think they're hearing the commission's voice, but they're not. They're hearing my voice or your voice. And when I say I think it's disrespectful to the body overall, they don't know that they're not hearing the commission's voice. And I want to make sure that when we go to committee meetings that we adhere to something that I've been adhering to for the last 5 years, which is I don't speak. And I mentioned that at the BIAC meeting last time. That's the first time I've spoken at a meeting ever. And I rarely go to them, because I believe that our presence there skews their work, and it also, I think, influences them. I believe they need to have the autonomy to do the work that we ask them to do without influence from an individual commissioner either attending, which I won't ask that doesn't happen. But when we speak, I believe that we're influencing them in a way that's not representative of the commission overall.
Well, I remember what I was going to ask. Often at the committees like MAC or partners meeting like today or whatever, you might get asked a question. And, what's the response? Not what does the Port of Bellingham think necessarily, but just a general question about whether it's moorage or, whatever. And I think that rather than say, I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Well, I believe that our individual responsibilities at those outside committees, like I'm on the EDI board, and I haven't given you 2 a report about what that conversation was last time either. So I will try to make sure I get those to you. So I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about a Marine Advisory, the BIAC, the TAC, and do we still have an ethics committee?
That's what Marine Advisory MAC, because I've been asked questions there.
Yeah.
I would think it would be only right to answer those or to give information to their, whatever they're asking. I don't think it influences their decision. There's 20 people there, 15 people there. I don't know how Dan feels about it.
Well, I've been to most of the MAC meetings this year and all the BIAC meetings and a couple of the TAC meetings. And I usually preface my comment at those meetings with the fact that I'm speaking as one commissioner and not as the commission. But a lot of times there's questions that they ask that you're saving them a lot of time by letting them know where you stand as a commissioner on their particular question they have. And Jim, I've sat back at the MAC meetings that you've been at, and I thought the input that you've had when they've asked you questions has been really good. And I sat through most of those meetings until the end when they ask if there's something you want to say, and otherwise I wouldn't partake. But I think it stops them from going in the wrong direction. For example, in the last BIAC meeting, there was a lot of talk about where the commission would go with a social impact study. And do you think the commission would be interested in that? Or maybe it was the one before. And they want feedback. I don't think it's harmful to give them the feedback. It could be, I guess, from just the director. But when they ask the commission, if they don't want a commissioner there, they could certainly say that. But I think it's an advantage to have a commissioner there. After all, there are committees, and right in their bylaws or their instructions, it says that they answer to the director through the commission. Many times after that, I've gone out and met with individual members that I wouldn't even know if I hadn't attended the meeting.
All right, I'll present a resolution at an upcoming meeting, so we'll have a further discussion about this. I'll flesh it out a little bit more.
Can I comment on the staffing part of it? Because if I understood you correctly, you don't want the directors from the departments at the committee meetings?
No, that's not at all. I'll clear it up as we move forward on that resolution, though. But I'd like to move on from that because I'm not hearing any support right now. So I did ask Rob, as far as the BIAC goes, to assign a lower level staff person rather than the airport director to act as a liaison to the BIAC until the time that the BIAC has sort of matured to a level that they're clearly not at right now. What I would like to happen there is less direction from Dan, no disrespect Dan, less direction from Dan, less direction from Rob's office, and more direction from us until we get that committee going and they understand clearly what it is that we want them to do. And what I'd like is that liaison can be anybody from the airport. I think an airport staff person would be the most relevant to have there. But I'd like them to just simply take requests that the BIAC has, take notes that are relevant to the work that they're going to be doing, not the same as the meeting notes, and to present those to the commission at the very next commission meeting, and we can have a discussion about what the BIAC is interested in doing and what we want them to be doing.
So you want a report from each one of these meetings that are like BIAC or whatever you're talking about, and you want that from a person on the committee? Is that you're going to assign?
Well, in this case, it's simply the BIAC, because the BIAC's new. The MAC's a very mature group.
Well, let's take the MAC then.
Yeah.
What would be the situation there?
I feel confident the MAC is functioning well, but the BIAC being a new committee and still feeling its way, I think they need more contact with the commission so they understand our voice more than they have right now. And for example, they've met 5 times this year, and I haven't seen a single thing that they're working on. I have no idea what they're working on. If I hadn't attended the meeting, I would still have no idea what they're working on.
I can tell you for sure, then I think Dan Saul could back this up, that when we had mortgage discussions, there was some pretty heated, not heated, but some rather harsh discussions dealing with commercial versus pleasure and whatever else. So things do happen on a scale that way. I don't know about the airport meeting. I heard that it was pretty wild and crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But
Again, the idea being here that's until this group matures and has a full understanding of the need that we have of the group as a commission, then I think that for now, I'd like to see more information being shared and less direction from senior staff or Rob's office.
I don't mind more information being shared. I thought anytime I've wanted information, I've been able to get it. we've written what the committee actions should be, and that they report to the Director of Aviation, just like we do in the other meetings. I think the going to all three committee meetings, I think the problem in the BIAC is more with a couple individuals that continue to just talk about noise and have for a year and a half, and even before that, and they've never come up with a solution on noise. So there's never anything they want to bring before the commission. I wouldn't want to change the way we do these committee meetings because of a couple people on one committee. I think it's important to have the directors there. I mean, there are eyes and ears. They have to answer questions about the port. These folks are citizens that really don't know a lot about the port. And so I would like to leave it like it is.
Well, I can only say one thing. The BIAC is dysfunctional. It'll continue to be dysfunctional, and I have no idea what they're doing. And I'm not willing to go to the meeting every time because it's not my responsibility to make sure that our committee is working. It's our responsibility to make sure our committee is working.
So if you don't go, how would you know?
Because they need to be giving us the information that we've asked them to work on. And they don't know what we want them to work on. I had a meeting this week with the chair, April. And April sat across from me and said, "We thought you guys asked us to work on noise."
Well, it's right here. Here it is, the purpose of the meeting: airport planning and development, airport ground transportation, air traffic, airport and aircraft operation, airport on-site parking, airport noise, airport outreach to pilots and tenants, airport outreach to surrounding communities, airport economic impacts and business opportunities, tourism and visitor services, and community partnerships. Only one of those was noise.
Yep.
The problem, if you want to change it and make it a little better, I would suggest that we limit the terms on those committees to 2 years, that we not limit the term, but we review them every 2 years. So if there's someone on those committees that are causing a delay or not being able to bring it forward, then we don't vote, we don't place them for the next year. So I wouldn't mind shorten, or at least look at yearly or every other year when we would need those, if we want those people or we want to replace them. And I agree, the BIAC is very dysfunctional. It's probably one of the most frustrating meetings I went to, where the MAC is much better. The MAC has a director attend, 2 commissioners attend, and I haven't heard one complaint from it. And by going to those, you really learn a lot about the community. And as a commissioner, you know, the community means a lot to me. And if you're not there, you won't know what's going on. That's my 2 bits worth.
Well, I'm trying to offer a solution to help the BIAC become better, but I'm not hearing any support on this.
I'll say it again, limit the terms to.
That's 2 years from now. We need something next month. We don't need something 2 years from now. They're not going to survive.
Well, it's not
They're not going to survive the year. They're ready to quit now. And that doesn't do us any good. We set up this committee to help us, to inform us on the community's voice. We have the TAC, which is very useful because it talks about all the difficult stuff on operating the airport. But these people are supposed to be representing the community's voice, to inform us, advise us, to help us come up with solutions that we've laid out that we need answers to. Now, you can individually go spend as much time as you want on this stuff, but that completely negates the whole point of why we wanted the advisory committee in the first place. And it needs to be fixed soon.
I would think that, excuse me, that if we had a representative from the commission there, that questions are going to certainly arise from the committee that deal with what does the commission feel about this? And if the commission, or one, let's say one was there, Dan, whoever, that if you would respond to that, as I'm just speaking as one commissioner, certainly not as the commission, to give some information that they don't have, that they don't not aware of. And that's why I think it would be nice to have a commissioner there. The speaking part, if you're interrupting and that sort of thing, then that's something different, but I wasn't there, so I don't know what.
Well, I've asked April to sit with her group and come up with some handful of ideas about what they're going to need to be more successful, to get successful. I believe she'll have something for us within the next 2 weeks or not later, excuse me, or not later than the second meeting in December. So in the meantime, if you would like to have a conversation with her and give her some ideas about what you're interested in specifically.
I'd be more than happy to. I received an email from one of the members there thanking me for attending the meeting, so I'm a little confused on what it would do to not attend those meetings.
Well, that's it for me.
A quick comment on the minutes. I know the BIAC minutes are posted on the website every month. I don't know if the MAC minutes are. The MAC minutes are as well. So after these are approved, they are posted on the website. We'll take that one step further. We'll pull them off the website. We'll email them to each of you and make sure that you have them so that there's no confusion as to the minutes.
That would be great. Thank you.
Do they wait a month till the following meeting to approve the minutes and then send them? So
Yes.
the minutes you're receiving are a month and a week late.
Correct. We don't post unapproved minutes. That's right.
That could be part of the problem, I understand why. You can't send them out unless they've been approved.
We could send them to the three of you, I guess, unapproved, as long as you understand that they're unapproved.
Just say they're a draft. Would that help, Mike?
They can be approved. I don't care. I just want to see them. I don't want to have to search for them either.
Okay.
Well, I've found them all online.
Like I said, I don't want to have to search for them. Anything further from you guys? None? All right, Rob?
Just one more comment. This is old-time comment. I was thinking about when I first became a commissioner, and I remember Scott Walker and Doug Smith being on the commission, and there used to be nonprofit corporations and foundations and all of that were strongly opposed to the development with Georgia Pacific, et cetera, et cetera. And I went to every one of those meetings I could possibly go to because I wanted to know what was going on. And I was pretty much at the first kind of giggled at from Doug and Scott. They just said, "Bet that was a fun meeting." I said, "Well, no, it wasn't exactly." And people yelling and screaming, but at least you got an idea what's going on. And I think the more meetings we can go to listen to what's happening, the more important it is, as far as I'm concerned. But that worked pretty good for me.
Well, I think you're discussing a different point, though.
Yeah, it is a little
Yeah,
different. That's
yeah.
true.
I'm talking about just our specific committee meetings
Right.
that we set up
Right.
to advise us. So, thanks.
Well, under new business and go to the order, I was out at one of our community events this last week and saw an old friend from the pulp mill, and he told me he had the original building permit for Puget Sound Pulp and Timber. And this was in July 26th of 1937. The fee for the permit was $355, and it was to construct a pulp mill without buildings for $630,000. And they had the building completed. This was in July of 37. They had the building completed before December of 38. So a lot has changed since then. We can't even get property cleaned up in 11 years, let alone build a building. I found that of interest.
Thanks, Dan. Nothing further then? We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.